Following disappointing sales of its last two flagship phones, the G4, which was covered in leather, and the G5, which used modularity to good effect but poor sales, LG's gone all out with the G6, its brand new smartphone.
LG actually made a loss last year following the disappointing sales of the G5 and V20, but its new handset is a bold step in the right direction.
First thing you'll notice when you pick up a G6 is the new design.
So the screen on the G6 is different to most. The aspect ratio is 18:9, which means it's taller than other smartphone screens out there. It gives the handset thinner bezels and makes it quite striking to look at, and means the software is based around using squares as the screen can be split into two of them. Gone are the leather of the G4 and the modular design of the G5. LG had just been trying too hard to stand out. It turns out all they actually needed to do was design something as subtly confident as the G6. The glass rear is shiny though, and our black model is not only a fingerprint magnet, but prone to little dinks and scratches. But hey, this isn't a phone you want to hide in a case, it's that good looking. The back is flush with the excellent wide-angle dual cameras of the G5 present, while USB-C, full waterproofing, and a sturdy metal frame make up a phone that you really can actually use in one hand. It's still a two-handed phone for most things, but for scrolling and reading and watching video, it makes phones like the iPhone 7 Plus look comically huge.
So why is it that LG has come under a bit of flack for putting the certain 821 processor inside the G6?
The G6 has a Snapdragon 821 processor, which is all anyone really needs in 2017, even though we probably are going to see the Snapdragon 835 later on this year. It means the G6 is as fast and responsive to use as phones which use the same chip, like the Google Pixel and the OnePlus 3T. In extended use, we've had no complaints about the speed of this phone. The UK model comes with 4GB of RAM and 32GB of storage, but importantly, a micro SD slot for expansion. The 3300 mAh non-removable battery is big enough to power a display like this comfortably for over a day.
So it has that big 18:9 screen, which doesn't really affect how you use the phone. In fact, it improves what it feels like to use day to day. And a lot of that is down to what LG's done with the software.
The G6 pleasingly ships with Android Nougat 7.0, but then again, it'd be a crime if it didn't. LG's overlay has a certain playfulness in it, in the pastel colours, square design focus, and rounded edges influenced by the screen. It is well refined, with everything from app animations to menus flowing without a pause. LG's own apps on the G6, such as messaging, weather, and calendar, have been redesigned to better manage white space and the information displayed, since there's a little bit more room to play with. In apps like Netflix, you can choose to fit to screen if you want to use the whole thing. It's not as intrusive a problem as we had feared, but you will notice it compared to other flagship phones which stick to the regular aspect ratio.
So one thing you'll notice about the G6, which is very pleasing to see, is it's completely flat. There's no camera bump on the back, but like the G5, there are still two cameras.
The dual cameras produce excellent photos, and the camera software has been redone with some excellent use of extra screen space. We love that when taking photos landscape, you get a camera roll of the last few photos taken, rather than the smartphone norm of one tiny thumbnail of the one most recent photo. There are also 4 new photo modes based around squares. Match Shot, which lets you shoot 2 images and combine them into one. Snapshot, which lets you take a photo and then another of the same subject to compare. Grid Shot lets you take 4 shots and combine them into a collage. And Guide Shot, which is actually just plain weird and hard to use and isn't really worth the bother. These modes do well to showcase the camera, but they do feel a little gimmicky. And in fact, the G6 is strong enough not to need little quirks like this. The stuff that you appreciate is the option for an app tray, decent split-screen multitasking, and just the fact that you can tell that for once LG has agonised over the details when putting together the hardware and the software. It is a more refined smartphone than both the G4 and the G5, and should appeal to a broader audience, which is no doubt LG's goal.
To take a step back, it is kind of just like every other smartphone, but that's not necessarily a bad thing when LG has made one this good. And the biggest praise that we can really give the G6 is that when you pick it up at first, you think, it's a smartphone, it'll do, but over time, the changes that they made to the software and the improvements with the hardware, and more importantly, how they've tied those all together, make this truly one of the best phones you can buy at the moment.